The alarm bells rang across Luna Command as the largest fleet humanity had ever seen dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Hayes stood in the control room watching the massive shapes appear on the main screen. Ship was bigger than Earth's largest space station. There were hundreds of them, all moving in perfect formation toward the inner planet's Doctor. Patel rushed into the command center with her team of language experts. She had been studying alien communications for 20 years, always hoping for this moment, but not like this. Not with such a huge fleet that looked ready for war. The communications officer turned to Admiral Hayes with a worried look. "Sir, we're getting a transmission. It's in English, but the grammar is strange." He's nodded. "Put it on speakers." A deep, booming voice filled the room. The words were clear but spoken in an odd way that made everyone listen carefully. "People of the small blue world, we are the Dominion Collective. We rule all space and all worlds. We will surrender now, or we will destroy your planet completely. You have 3 of your days to decide." The room went silent. Dr. Patel was already writing notes, trying to understand how the aliens had learned English and why they spoke it so strangely. Hayes looked at the fleet on the screen. Each ship was at least 10 times bigger than anything Earth had ever built. The alien voice continued. "We have conquered 1,047 worlds. No species has ever defeated us. We are the strongest power in all the galaxy. Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your ships are like toys compared to ours. Surrender and serve us, and you will live. Fight us, and everyone on your world will die." Hayes turned to his communication team. "Send a message back. Tell them we need time to consider their offer. Ask them to send representatives for talks." Dr. Patel stepped forward. "Admiral, I need to study their language more. Something about the way they speak doesn't seem right. It's too formal, like they learned our language from very old books." The alien response came quickly. "We will allow 1 small ship to approach. Our flagship. Send your leaders. They will see our power and understand why they must surrender. Do not try to trick us. We can destroy your world from here if we choose." Hayes looked around the room at his officers. Everyone was scared, but they were trying not to show it. The alien fleet was enormous. Earth's space navy had only 50 ships, and most of them were built for exploration, it's not fighting. Captain Rivera entered the command center, which was Earth's best diplomat and had been chosen to lead first contact missions if they ever happened. She looked calm, but Hayes could see the worry in her eyes when she saw the alien ships on the screen. "How many ships are we looking at?" Rivera asked. "Over 300, maybe more." "They're still arriving," Hayes replied. "They want to meet with us. I'm sending you on the Defiant with a small team." Rivera nodded. "Who else is coming?" Dr. Patel raised her hand. "I need to be there. Something about their language bothers me, but I can't figure out what yet." Hayes also assigned Engineer Torres to the team. Torres was the best at understanding alien technology that Earth had ever found. If they were going to survive this, they needed to know what kind of weapons they were facing. The UES Defiant was Earth's newest diplomatic ship, was small compared to the alien vessels, but it was fast and had the best communication equipment humanity could build. As they flew toward the alien flagship, the crew could see the massive ships up close for the first time. Dr. Patel stared out the window at the alien fleet. The ships were huge and looked very threatening. They had dark metal hulls with strange designs carved into them. Red lights blinked along their sides like angry eyes. But something was bothering her about the whole situation. "Don," she said to Rivera, "have you noticed that their ships don't look like they were built for fighting?" Rivera looked out at the nearest ship. "What do you mean?" "Look at the shape. It's long and wide, like it's meant to carry cargo. And those weapons on the sides, they don't look right. They're too small for ships this big." Engineer Torres was scanning the alien ships with the Defiant sensors. "The energy readings are strange too. I'm seeing mostly life support and engines. There's very little power going to weapons systems." Rivera thought about this as they got closer to the flagship. The alien ship was massive, easily the size of a small city. It had hundreds of lights and what looked like weapons pointing in all directions. But Dr. Patel was right. Something about it didn't look like a warship. The alien flagship sent them docking instructions. As the Defiant connected to the huge ship, the human team prepared for the meeting that could decide Earth's future. Rivera checked her uniform one last time. Dr. Patel gathered her translation equipment. Torres made sure his scanner was hidden. But ready to analyze anything they saw, the airlock opened, and they stepped into the alien ship. The corridors were enormous, with high ceilings and dramatic lighting. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small and afraid. Red lights pulsed along the walls, and strange music played softly in the background. Tall alien guards led them through the ship. The aliens looked similar to humans but were much taller and thinner. They wore dark uniforms with many decorations and carried weapons that glowed with energy. They didn't speak, just pointed the way forward. The humans walked through corridor after corridor, all designed to impress and intimidate. The walls showed pictures of alien fleets destroying planets and species bowing before Dominion leaders. The message was clear. Resistance was hopeless. Finally, they reached a huge chamber with a throne at the far end. The alien leader sat on the throne, wearing a cape and crown that sparkled with jewels. He was even taller than the guards, and his voice echoed through the room when he spoke. "I am General Threx, commander of the Dominion fleet. You are from the blue world that thinks it can resist us. Look around you and see the power of the Dominion. Your world will surrender, or it will burn." Captain Rivera stepped forward, trying to look calm even though her heart was beating fast. The fate of humanity might depend on the next few minutes. Captain Rivera looked up at General Threx on his massive throne. The alien leader was at least 8 feet tall, with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed in the dim light. His uniform was covered in medals and ribbons that caught the light from the red flames burning in metal bowls around the room. "We come in peace, General Threx," Rivera said, keeping her voice steady. "We want to understand your terms." Threx leaned forward on his throne. "Terms? There are no terms. There is only surrender or death. Every species in this galaxy has learned this truth. You will learn it too." Dr. Patel stepped closer to Rivera, still studying the way Threx spoke. His English was perfect, but something about his word choices seemed odd. It was like he had learned the language from very formal, old-fashioned sources. Threx stood up and walked down from his throne. Each step echoed through the chamber. "Let me show you why resistance is impossible," he said. He waved his hand. And the walls around them lit up with images. The first image showed a peaceful planet with green forests and blue oceans. Then the scene changed to show Dominion ships arriving. The planet's small defense fleet tried to fight, but they were destroyed in seconds. The planet surrendered, and its people were shown bowing before Dominion commanders. "The Zellan species," Threx explained. "They had a strong military and thought they could resist us. They lasted 6 minutes. The next image showed another world, this one covered in ice and snow. Again, Dominion ships arrived. Again, the local forces were crushed quickly. Again, the population surrendered. The Corvin Empire. They controlled 12 star systems and had the largest fleet in their region. It lasted for minutes. Image after image showed the same pattern. Peaceful worlds, arriving Dominion fleets, brief battles, total surrender. Each conquest was faster than the last. Threx described each victory with pride, explaining how the Dominion's superior technology made resistance pointless. Engineer. Torres was quietly scanning everything he could see. His hidden scanner was recording the energy patterns from the wall, displays the structure of the ship around them, and the weapons carried by the guards. The readings were confusing him more and more. "Your fleet is impressive," Rivera admitted. "But we would like to know more about your intentions for Earth. What would happen to our people under Dominion rule?" Threx smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp. "Your species will serve the Dominion, as all species do. You will provide resources, workers, and soldiers for our continuing expansion. In return, we will protect you from other threats and allow you to continue existing. And if we refuse?" Rivera asked. The alien leader's expression turned dark. "Then your world burns. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. We have ships that can turn your sun into a weapon against you." We have destroyed entire species that refuse to see reason. Dr. Patel was listening carefully to every word. Threx's threats were dramatic and frightening, but something about them felt wrong. They were too much like something from an old science fiction movie. Real military commanders didn't usually talk like this. We have studied your species during our journey to your system, Threx continued. You are young and weak. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow and fragile. You have never faced a real enemy before. You cannot even imagine the power we command. Torres was trying not to react to what his scanner was telling him. The weapons he could see didn't match the energy signatures they should have. The ship's structure was wrong for a warship. Even the guards' weapons seemed to be producing more light than actual destructive energy. Threx walked over to a large window that showed the Dominion fleet spread out through space. Look at our armada. Count our ships if you can. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a city. Together, they can eliminate all life on your world in less than 1 hour. Rivera looked out at the fleet. The ships were certainly impressive in size, but now that she was looking more carefully, she could see what Dr. Patel had noticed earlier. The proportions were wrong for warships. They looked more like cargo vessels or passenger ships that had been modified to look threatening. Your scanners cannot penetrate our shields, Threx said, noticing Rivera looking at the ships. You cannot understand our technology, but perhaps you would like a demonstration of our power. We could destroy one of your moons to show you what awaits your planet if you resist. Something in his voice made Rivera look at him more carefully. Was that nervousness she heard? She decided to test something. That would be helpful, she said calmly. A demonstration would make it easier for us to convince our leaders to surrender. Threx's expression flickered for just a moment. That ... that will not be necessary. Your leaders are intelligent enough to understand the situation without such measures. Dr. Patel caught the hesitation too. She stepped forward. General, your language skills are remarkable. How did you learn to speak English so well? We have studied your transmissions for many years, Threx replied quickly. We learn the languages of all species before we conquer them. Which transmissions? Specifically, Dr. Patel asked. Our radio signals haven't been strong enough to reach very far into space. Threx looked uncomfortable. We have advanced methods of detection, methods your science cannot understand. Torres was getting more confused readings from his scanner. The ship's engines were massive, but they seemed designed for hauling heavy cargo across long distances, not for quick maneuvers in battle. The power systems were all wrong for a warship too. Rivera decided to push a little harder. We appreciate your patience with us, General. Our leaders will want to know exactly what kind of tribute Earth would need to provide to the Dominion. Tribute. Threx seemed relieved to be back on safer ground, as all worlds provide tribute. Raw materials, manufactured goods, food supplies. Whatever the Dominion requires. What does the Dominion do with all these resources? Rivera asked. We use them to maintain our fleet and continue our expansion across the galaxy. Threx answered, but he seemed less confident now. Dr. Patel was studying Threx's body language as much as his words. It must take enormous resources to keep a fleet this size operational. Is how many worlds currently provide tribute to the Dominion? Over 1,000, Threx said proudly, all grateful for our protection and guidance. That's fascinating, Torres said, speaking for the first time. With that many worlds providing resources, your technology must be incredibly advanced. Much more advanced than what we're seeing here. Threx stared at Torres. What do you mean by that? Torres tried to look innocent. Oh, nothing specific. It's just that with resources from 1,000 worlds, I would expect to see technology that's even more impressive than what we've observed so far. The alien general was definitely nervous now. Our technology is beyond your understanding. Cannot judge what you see here. Rivera decided it was time to take a break before they pushed too hard. General Threx, we appreciate your time and the information you've shared. We would like to return to our ship briefly to discuss what we've learned with our colleagues. Threx looked relieved. Yes, that is wise. Take time to understand the hopelessness of resistance. But remember, you have less than 3 days remaining. The Dominion's patience is not unlimited. As the human team was escorted back through the impressive corridors to their ship, each of them was thinking the same thing. Something about this. The whole situation didn't add up. But none of them wanted to say anything until they were safely back on the Defiant. The moment the airlock sealed behind them, they all looked at each other with the same expression. Something very strange was going on with the mighty Dominion Collective. The airlock door sealed shut behind them, and for a moment, all three humans just stared at each other. Then Captain Rivera started laughing. It began as a small chuckle, but it quickly grew into full laughter that she couldn't control. Dr. Patel covered her mouth, trying not to join in, but she couldn't help herself. Soon she was laughing too. Engineer Torres looked at both of them like they had lost their minds. But then he thought about what his scanner had told him, and he started laughing as well. "I can't believe it," Rivera said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I actually can't believe it. It's the mighty Dominion Collective," Dr. Patel said, still giggling. "The conquerors of 1,000 worlds." Torres was shaking his head. "They're not conquerors at all. They're the galaxy's biggest con artists." Rivera sat down in the pilot's chair and tried to calm down. "Okay, let's go through this step by step. Patel, what did you notice about their language?" Dr. Patel pulled out her notes. "Threx speaks English like someone who learned it from very old formal documents. His grammar is perfect, but he uses phrases that nobody has used for hundreds of years. When he talks about destroying planets, he sounds like he's reading from an ancient war story." "What does that mean?" Rivera asked. "It means he probably learned English from our old radio and television broadcasts. The dramatic ones. Old movies, old books, old speeches. He's trying to sound threatening, but he's using language that's too old-fashioned and dramatic to be real." Torres was looking at his scanner data. "And the ships are all wrong. I scanned everything I could reach. The Dominion flagship isn't a warship. It's a cargo hauler that's been decorated to look scary." Rivera leaned forward. "Explain that." "Hull is designed for carrying large loads across long distances, not for fighting. The engines are built for fuel efficiency, not speed or maneuverability. The power systems are all wrong for weapons, and those weapons I could scan. They're not weapons at all." "What are they?" Torres pulled up the data on his scanner. "Mining lasers." "Wait. The big scary cannons on their ships are industrial mining equipment. They've been painted black and red to look threatening, but they're just tools for digging up asteroids." Dr. Patel was nodding. "What?" "That explains the energy readings you mentioned. Mining lasers need steady, controlled energy. Military weapons need quick, powerful bursts." Rivera thought about this. "So the Dominion fleet isn't a military force. They're miners and cargo haulers pretending to be warriors." "That's exactly what they are," Torres confirmed. "I bet if we scanned their whole fleet, we'd find cargo ships, passenger liners, industrial vessels, maybe some research ships. All of them modified to look like warships, but none of them actually capable of fighting." Dr. Patel was still studying her notes. "And think about what Threx told us. He said they've conquered over 1,000 worlds, but every conquest was incredibly fast. 6 minutes here, 4 minutes there. There's no real battles, just immediate surrender. Because the aliens they were fighting realized the same thing we did?" Rivera asked. "No," Dr. Patel said slowly. "I think it's the opposite. I think every species they encountered was so scared by the size and appearance of the fleet that they surrendered without even trying to fight." Torres stared at her. "You mean they've been bluffing this whole time? For centuries?" "Think about it," Dr. Patel continued. "Most intelligent species are peaceful. When they see a huge fleet of big, scary-looking ships, their first instinct is to avoid war. They surrender immediately to save lives. They never actually test whether the Dominion can back up their threats." Rivera was quiet for a long moment, thinking through the implications. "So there are over 1,000 species out there living under Dominion rule, paying tribute and following orders, all because they're afraid of a fleet that can't actually hurt them." "The perfect con," Torres agreed. "They look scary enough that nobody wants to fight them, so nobody ever discovers that they're harmless." Dr. Patel was flipping through her notes again. "Remember how nervous Threx got when you suggested they demonstrate their power? He couldn't destroy one of our moons because he doesn't have weapons capable of doing it." And when Torres started, Asking about their technology, he got defensive, Rivera added. Because there's nothing impressive to show us. Torres was running more detailed scans on the data he had collected. I'm seeing some other interesting things too. Their ship has living quarters for a huge crew, but most of them seem to be empty. And there are cargo holds everywhere, like this ship is normally used for transporting goods, not people.
Ow.
So how does this con work exactly? Rivera asked. Dr. Patel had been thinking about this. I think they find peaceful species, show up with their impressive-looking fleet, make dramatic threats, and demand surrender. The locals are so scared that they give up immediately, and the Dominion takes some tribute and moves on. But they can't stay to enforce their rule, Torres realized. If they stayed in one place too long, someone would figure out that their weapons don't work. They probably visit each world occasionally to collect tribute and remind everyone who's in charge, Rivera said. But they spend most of their time traveling between systems, looking for new species to intimidate. Patel nodded. It's actually a brilliant plan. As long as nobody calls their bluff, they can keep this going forever. They get resources from hundreds of worlds without ever having to actually fight anyone. Torres was grinning. And we're the first species that's analytical enough and suspicious enough to figure out what they're really doing. Rivera stood up and walked to the window. She could see the Dominion fleet spread out through space, hundreds of ships that looked mighty and threatening. But now she knew the truth. They were all fake. So what do we do now? Torres asked. Do we expose them? Do we tell the galaxy that the mighty Dominion is just a bunch of miners with fancy paint jobs? Dr. Patel looked thoughtful. That would free all those species from Dominion control. But it might also cause chaos. Some of those worlds have been under Dominion rule for centuries. Their whole societies are built around it. Rivera was still looking at the fleet. What about Earth? Threx is expecting an answer in less than 3 days. If we refuse to surrender and he can't destroy us, his whole con is exposed. But if we agree to surrender, we become part of the scam, Torres finished. We help them trick other species. Dr. Patel was quiet for a moment. There might be a third option. What if we play along, but on our terms? Rivera turned back to them. What do you mean? What if we agree to join the Dominion, but we do it in a way that gives us control over the situation? We know their secret. That gives us power over them. Torres was nodding slowly. We could protect the other species without destroying their societies. We could gradually reform the whole system from the inside. Rivera smiled. And in the meantime, we become the galaxy's first real military power. Not for conquest, but for protection. Dr. Patel was getting excited. We could turn the Dominion from a criminal organization into a legitimate government, with Earth providing actual security instead of fake threats. Torres was already thinking. About the technical challenges, we'd need to be careful. If we move too fast, we could cause panic across hundreds of worlds. Rivera looked back at the alien fleet. First, we need to deal with General Threx. He's expecting us to surrender. And we need to give him an answer that doesn't expose his secret, but also doesn't make Earth a victim. So we're going to outcon the con artists? Dr. Patel asked. Rivera grinned. Something like that. But first, we need to contact Admiral Hayes and let him know what we've discovered, because this changes everything. Captain Rivera sent a coded message back to Admiral Hayes on Luna Command. The message was simple. The situation is not what it appears. The Dominion fleet poses no military threat. Recommend playing along while we develop a plan. We'll explain. More later. Hayes received the message with confusion, but he trusted Rivera's judgment. He quietly began moving Earth's real warships into position around the solar system, not to fight the Dominion, but to be ready for whatever Rivera had planned. Meanwhile, Rivera's team returned to the Dominion flagship for their second meeting. With General Threx, this time, they knew exactly what they were dealing with, and they had a plan. Threx was waiting for them in the same dramatic throne room, the same red lighting and intimidating music. He seemed more nervous than before, probably because the humans hadn't shown the proper fear during their first meeting. Have your leaders reached a decision? Threx asked, trying to sound confident. Rivera stepped forward. We have some questions. First, General, Our military advisors want to understand exactly what they're surrendering to. Threx shifted uncomfortably on his throne. Your questions are unnecessary. The Dominion's power speaks for itself. Dr. Patel spoke up. Actually, our scientists are fascinated by your technology. We've never seen weapon systems like yours before. Could you explain how your plasma cannons work? Our weapons are beyond your understanding, Threx replied quickly. Torres joined in. We're particularly interested in the energy efficiency of your systems. Our scans suggest you're using some kind of advanced power source we've never encountered. Right. Threx was definitely sweating now. Your primitive scanners cannot penetrate our shielding. You cannot possibly understand what you think you're seeing. Rivera smiled. Of course not. That's why we're asking for your help. Perhaps you could give us a tour of your weapon systems. Our engineers would be amazed to see technology that advanced, that is not possible, Threx stammered. Dominion military secrets cannot be shared with outsiders. Dr. Patel pressed further. What about your ship construction techniques? These vessels are enormous. How do you build them? So quickly? We have industrial methods that your species has not developed, Threx answered. But his voice was getting higher with stress. Torres was enjoying this, and your crew training must be incredible. How do you teach so many beings to operate such complex weapons? Threx stood up from his throne, trying to regain his commanding presence. Enough questions. Your species talks too much and thinks too little. That's why you will serve the Dominion instead of leading it. Rivera decided to push harder. General, military commanders are having trouble explaining to Earth's population why they should surrender to a force they've never seen in action. A small demonstration of your power would solve this problem. I have already told you that demonstrations are unnecessary, Threx said firmly. But surely destroying a small asteroid wouldn't be difficult for ships this powerful. Dr. Patel suggested innocently. Threx was pacing now. The Dominion does not waste energy on pointless displays. Wace pointed out the window at the fleet. With all those ships, you must have some basic training exercises. Could we observe one of those? Our training methods are classified, Threx snapped. Rivera exchanged glances with her team. Threx was getting more desperate with each question. It was time to spring their trap. General Rivera said formally, Earth's leaders have made their decision. But before we announce it, we need to contact the other species under Dominion rule. We want to understand what we're joining. Threx froze. What do you mean? We'd like to speak with representatives from some of the worlds you've conquered. Zellan species you mentioned, for example. Or the Corvan Empire. We want to hear their experiences under Dominion rule. That is not how we operate. Threx said weakly. Dr. Patel was studying him carefully. How strange. Most governments encourage communication between their subjects. Why does the Dominion discourage it? We do not discourage it, Threx protested. We simply maintain security protocols that limit unnecessary contact. Torres was nodding thoughtfully. Security protocols. That makes sense? You probably don't. Want your subjects comparing notes about their experiences? The color was draining from Threx's blue face. What are you suggesting? Rivera decided it was time to show their cards. General, we've been thinking about your conquest records. Over 1,000 worlds, all surrendering in minutes. That's an incredible achievement. Yes, Threx said suspiciously.
Nice.
It demonstrates the futility of resistance. Or, Dr. Patel said quietly, it demonstrates something else entirely. The throne room went silent, except for the dramatic music still playing in the background. As Threx stared at the three humans, and they stared back at him, but the moment stretched out until Rivera finally spoke. Here's what we think happened, General. You found a way to convince peaceful species to surrender without actually fighting them. You built impressive-looking ships, created dramatic presentations, and relied on fear to win your victories. It's actually quite brilliant. Threx opened his mouth to deny it, but no words came out. Torres continued. The problem is that eventually, you are going to encounter a species that wouldn't be scared by appearances, a species that would ask difficult questions and demand proof of your claims. You're wrong, Threx whispered. But there was no conviction in his voice. Dr. Patel stepped closer to the throne. We scanned your ships, General. We analyzed your language patterns. We studied your behavior. We know what you really are. slumped back in his throne, looking smaller than before. "What are you going to do?" Rivera smiled. "That depends on you, General. You see, we have a problem. Earth's leaders need to give you an answer, but we can't surrender to a force that can't actually conquer us. And you can't destroy us because you don't have the weapons to do it. But we also can't expose you," Torres added, "because that would cause chaos across the galaxy. Hundreds of species would suddenly realize they've been living under fake rule for centuries." Dr. Patel sat down in one of the chairs near the throne. "So we need to find a solution that works for everyone. Earth gets to remain free, you get to maintain your operation, and the galaxy stays stable." Threx was looking at them with a mixture of fear and confusion. "What kind of solution?" Rivera walked over to the window, showing the Dominion fleet. "We're going to make you an offer, General. Earth will officially join the Dominion Collective. But instead of serving you, we're going to become your partners." "I don't understand," Threx said. Torres explained. "You've built an amazing organization based on the idea of galactic unity. The problem is that it's built on lies. We can help you turn it into something real." Dr. Patel nodded. "Earth has actual military technology. Real weapons, real ships, real training can provide the security that you've been pretending to offer." Rivera turned back to Threx. "Think about it. Instead of constantly worrying about being exposed, you could actually become the legitimate government you've been pretending to be." Threx was quiet for a long time, thinking about what they were suggesting. Finally, he asked, "What would happen? To me? To my crew? You'd become our partners in building a real galactic confederation," Rivera said. "Your experience in diplomacy and organization would be invaluable. And your ships, once we modify them properly, could become a real transportation and communication network connecting hundreds of worlds." Dr. Patel added, "Plus, you'd never have to worry about someone calling your bluff again." Torres grinned, because there wouldn't be a bluff to call. Threx looked around his dramatic throne room, then back at the three humans who had figured out his greatest secret. Slowly, a smile began to spread across his alien features. "You know," he said, "that might actually work." 6 months later, Admiral Hayes stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station, watching ships from dozens of different species docking at the ports below. The station was a joint project between Earth and the Reformed Dominion, collective now called the Galactic Confederation. The transformation had been remarkable. Once the truth about the Dominion's fake military was revealed to the galaxy's species, there had been initial shock and confusion. Some worlds had been angry about being deceived for so long. Others had been grateful to learn they were free from the threat they had feared for generations. But most species had chosen to remain part of the organization that Threx had built. The trade networks, communication systems, and cultural exchanges that had developed under Dominion rule were valuable, even if the military protection had been imaginary. The difference now was that everything was voluntary. There was real protection available when needed, Captain. Rivera had been promoted to Admiral and now commanded the Confederation Defense Fleet. It was a small force compared to the old Dominion Armada, but every ship was a real warship with real weapons. More importantly, it was only used for defense and peacekeeping, never for conquest. Dr. Patel had become the Confederation's chief of communications. She was working on a project to create a universal translation system that would allow all member species to communicate easily. Her office was constantly filled with aliens from different worlds, all working together to solve language puzzles that had confused linguists for centuries. Engineer Torres had been put in charge of converting the old Dominion fleet into useful civilian vessels. The fake warships were being transformed into cargo haulers, passenger liners, research vessels, and mobile hospitals. The mining lasers that had once pretended to be weapons were now being used for their original purpose, helping to build new space stations and extract resources from asteroids. General Threx had adapted to his new role surprisingly well. He was now the Confederation's Minister of Diplomatic Relations, using his natural talent for drama and presentation to help negotiate agreements between species. His theatrical skills, which had once been used to frighten civilizations into surrender, were now used to make boring diplomatic meetings more interesting and engaging. The biggest surprise had been how enthusiastic the galaxy's species were about the new arrangement. For the first time in centuries, they could communicate freely with each other without fear of violating Dominion rules. Trade flourished as species shared technologies and resources. Scientific research advanced rapidly as different worlds collaborated. On projects, Earth had become the unofficial military headquarters of the Confederation. But humanity was careful not to dominate the organization. The human ships provided security, but every major decision was made by a council with representatives from all member worlds. Earth had one vote, just like everyone else. Admiral Hayes watched as a group of young humans and aliens worked together to load supplies onto a medical ship heading to a distant world. The cooperation between species that had once lived in fear of each other was amazing to see. A communication alert interrupted his thoughts. It was Admiral Rivera calling from the bridge of the Confederation flagship Unity, which had once been Threx's intimidating command vessel but was now painted in peaceful blue and white colors. "Hayes, we've got a situation developing in the Outer Rim," Rivera reported. "Long-range sensors are detecting an unknown fleet approaching the Vega system. The locals are scared it might be another conquest force." Hayes nodded. "Handling it. Standard protocol. I'm taking 3 ships to investigate. Threx is coming with us to handle first contact if they're peaceful. If they're hostile, we'll be ready." This was exactly the kind of situation the new Confederation was designed to handle. Instead of waiting for threats to reach populated worlds, they could intercept them early and determine their intentions. If the newcomers were peaceful, they would be welcomed and invited to join the Confederation. If they were aggressive, they would face Earth's real military technology. Hayes approved the mission and returned to watching the station's activities. A few hours later, he received another call from Rivera. She was laughing. "Admiral, you're not going to believe this," Rivera said. "The unknown fleet is another fake military force, just like the old Dominion. They call themselves the Iron Hegemony, and they've been pulling the same con in a different part of the galaxy." Hayes shook his head in amazement. "How many of these fake empires are out there?" Threx thinks there might be several. Apparently the galaxy is full of peaceful species, so intimidation tactics work really well. At least until someone calls your bluff. "What happened when you confronted them?" Rivera's laughter got louder. Threx handled it perfectly. He invited their leader aboard for negotiations, then casually mentioned that he used to run a similar operation until he met humans. The poor alien nearly fainted when he realized we knew exactly what they were doing. "Are they going to join the Confederation? Already signed the papers?" Turns out their Iron Hegemony is actually a group of traders who got tired of being pushed around by more aggressive species. They figured if they looked scary enough, they could travel safely and negotiate better deals. They're thrilled to learn they can get the same benefits by joining a legitimate organization. Hayes was still shaking his head when Dr. Patel appeared. Beside him on the observation deck, she had been listening to the communication and was grinning. "You know what this means? We're going to keep running into these fake military empires all across the galaxy. And every time we do, we'll have more evidence that most intelligent species are naturally peaceful." Which means Hayes realized that humanity's real role in the galaxy isn't to be warriors, it's to be protectors. Dr. Patel nodded. "We're the species that's willing to fight when necessary, so everyone else can remain peaceful. We're not conquerors. We're guardians." A few weeks later, the Confederation Council held its quarterly meeting on the station. Over 200 worlds gathered to discuss trade agreements, scientific collaborations, and expansion plans. The meeting was chaired by Threx, who had developed an impressive talent for keeping discussions moving while making sure everyone felt heard. Captain Torres, promoted to chief engineer of the Confederation, gave a presentation on the fleet conversion project. The old Dominion ships were being transformed faster than expected, and several new classes of civilian vessels were already in service. The fake weapons had been completely removed and replaced with useful equipment like hospitals, research labs, and manufacturing facilities. Admiral Rivera reported on the security situation. The Confederation Defense Fleet had encountered 3 more fake military empires in the past month, and all of them had chosen to join the organization rather than continue their deception. The galaxy was becoming more peaceful and cooperative. With each passing day, Dr. Patel announced the completion of the Universal Translator Project. Every member world now had access to communication technology that could instantly translate between any known language. The barriers that had kept species isolated for centuries were finally coming down. But the most significant announcement came from Threx himself. Standing at the podium in his new diplomatic uniform, he looked out at the assembled representatives and smiled. "My friends," he said, "6 months ago, I was the leader of a criminal organization built on lies and fear. Today I stand before you as a member of the most successful cooperative government in galactic history. We have achieved something that no empire, dominion, or hegemony has ever accomplished. We have created a society where strength protects peace instead of destroying it." The alien representatives applauded, but Threx held up his hand for silence. This transformation was only possible because one species was brave enough to look past our deception and see what we could become. The humans of Earth didn't expose our lies to humiliate us. They offered us a chance to make our lies into truth. They turned our greatest shame into our greatest strength. More applause filled the chamber, but Hayes noticed that the loudest cheering was coming from the aliens, not the humans. Humanity had gained something precious from this first contact, the respect and friendship of hundreds of peaceful species who now saw Earth as their protector and partner. As the meeting concluded and representatives began returning to their ships, Hayes reflected on how much had changed since that day when the Dominion fleet first appeared at the edge of the solar system. Earth had prepared for war, and instead found itself leading a galactic renaissance of cooperation and peace. The best part was that it had all started with laughter. When the human delegation figured out that the mighty Dominion Collective was just an elaborate bluff, their first reaction had been to laugh at the absurdity of it all. That laughter had broken the spell of fear that had controlled the galaxy for centuries. Now, whenever new species joined the Confederation and learned the true story of first contact, they laughed too. The laughter was spreading across the galaxy, replacing fear with joy and suspicion with trust. Admiral Hayes smiled as he watched the last of the alien ships depart from the station. Earth had made first contact with the galactic fleet, and the humans' laughter had indeed changed everything. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through understanding, cooperation, and the simple recognition that sometimes the best way to deal with a serious situation is to find the humor in it. The galaxy was a much better place because humans had learned to laugh at their fears instead of being controlled by them. And in the end, that might have been humanity's greatest gift to the stars.